Okay, welcome back. My name is Emil, and today's video is about master volume and why you need one in an amp like this. This is the Super Lead 1959 reissue. I'm also going to show you how to set bias on the output tubes, because you need to do that after you install a master volume. I'm talking about PPIMV, post phase inverter master volume. It's gonna get nerdy. We're gonna go into the amp and have a look and everything, and I'm gonna show you some examples why you need it. And it's because the amp is too loud. It's unbearably loud. It is even if you're playing on the volume knob on 1, it is just extremely loud. And the thing is, the sound is crap. So you have to be, in my opinion, like way past noon to get a good sound out of this amp. And by that time, this is 100 watt. You're like smashing eardrums. So it's not an ultimate situation. So it starts to sound better, and if I go full volume, the amp wakes and it comes alive. So to be able to use this amp in like a normal situation, even when I first got it, I was trying to rehearse with it and without the master volume, and I mean, we're not disturbing anyone, and we have a pretty loud drummer, so who doesn't, right? So even in that situation, it is way too loud. So I had to be like the volume on 9 o'clock, and the sound is very thin and doesn't have much gain. It's more of a clean sound as opposed to running the volume full. Yeah, you know, these amps are not doesn't have a ton of gain as it is. It's a fairly clean amp, so you really need to drive it. A lot of the distortion comes in the power section, so you really have to crank it up. But so a PPIMV doesn't really allow you to drive the power amp, but what it does, it actually sits after the phase inverter, which is your V3, your third 12AX7 in this amp. So you get at least some distortion from the phase inverter tube. What the master volume is, it lowers the signal after the phase inverter, as opposed to if you're running a volume pot in the effects loop, you're actually lowering the signal before the phase inverter. So the preamp tubes are fairly clean in this amp, and then you're lowering the signal to the phase inverter, which will not clip or add distortion. And by then, when you're at the power section, the signal is so low, so it won't even distort there. So my opinion is a volume pot in the effects loop doesn't really cut it for me. You lack some feel. It might sound okay, and you can always push it with a pedal or something, but I somehow think a master volume, a PPIMV is a better choice. That's why I installed one in mine. If you back the gain off and run without a master volume, you'll get this very thin, crappy sound, as opposed to being able to run this at full volumes and getting this and getting that at actually bedroom levels. So let me show you here real quick. So this is Yeah, you can hear how low that is, and it still sounds okay. So everything is, you know, give and take. You give up something, but you gain something. So it's you'll have to see if it's worth it for you. Anyways, let's take a look inside. Okay, here we are inside the amp. As you can see, this is the reissue one. Actually, the Super Lead has had a printed circuit board since 1973. So, but it's been updated. Okay, first of all, you've been warned about how lethal it could be to work in a tube amp. Even after you switch off the amp, those capacitors can hold lethal voltages. So first thing you want to do is always put a meter on DC voltage and hook up your ground like that, and your positive, and get a reading, 0 volts. Okay, the reason why I don't have to discharge the capacitors is if you play the amp, get it up to like playing it a while, getting it hot, then when you switch it off, it's going to discharge itself. But be aware, it might be lethal voltages in those capacitors. So, okay, not until you make sure they don't hold any current, you can proceed to do whatever you want. But still, I always treat it as it potentially could be hot. So just because I know it's discharged, I always use something to poke around with, and I don't mess around more than I have to. I mean, for this video, I'm gonna show you the master volume one and how I did it. It doesn't look pretty, I know that. The reason is I had this shielded wire. It's quite thick. I had it, it's right here. This one. It's a very good quality and very expensive, so why not use what you have? The pot, on the other hand, was quite expensive to get here. It's a dual 250K pot made by PEC, and it's easier to get a hold of in the States. It's made in Canada, I think. Yes, Canada. And but over here it was a lot of shipping and custom, so it ended up being quite expensive. But I didn't want to cut any corners on this build, so I ordered that, but I had the cable, so it looks a bit shady, but it's all good. So okay, first thing you do, you want to locate your two 220K resistors. On a board like this, it's harder to do this mode, but it's definitely not hard. On a point-to-point kind of situation, it's much easier, but you have to remove those. They look like this. Okay, so what you want to do is you run one wire, in my case the orange one, from where the resistors used to join, right? And then you run it to the first lug of both sides, okay? And then one lead, this should be shielded, by the way, one lead from one of the resistors to peg 3 on one of the pots, and the other resistor to peg 3 on the other pot. Okay, then you see you got 2 resistors here. Those are 2.2 meg resistor, and they are like a safety backup. If the pot would fail, you won't destroy your tube or output transformer. Okay, from the pot it gets maybe a little tricky. You want to use shielded cable again, and you're gonna hook from the pot up to pin 5 on the 2 pairs. See, those 2 tubes are a pair, and these 2 are a pair. If you're doing this to a 50 watt amp, you'll only have 2 tubes, so there will be no pairs. So what you do is from pin 2 on one side, see that red wire, you're gonna feed that to pin 5 of these 2 output tubes. Okay, simple. And the other side, lug 2, that would be the green wire going out here, and feed pin 5 of those 2 tubes. All right, quick recap. Remove the resistors, 1 wire from where they join to pin 1 on both sides. 1 wire goes to pin 3 on one side, and the other one to pin 3 on the other side. And then the center lug, the lug number 2, on one side goes to 1 pair of the output tubes. That would be pin 5, and the other side would go to pin 5 on the other pair of tubes. Okay, and those 2 are safety resistors. 2.2 mega ohms resistor just keeps it from, if the pot fails, you won't destroy your tubes or transformer. Okay, when you've done this, I've mounted the pot in one of the speaker already existing holes, so I didn't have to drill anything. So if I want to return this to stock, it's quite easy, and you can't even, it's easy to go back to stock. Like I said, when you're done with this, you need to set the bias. Okay, when you're soldered everything up and you're absolutely sure you've made every connections right, double check, triple check. Okay, it's fine. You need to bias the amp, and this is your bias pot, the VR1, the variable resistor there. Okay, this is a little tricky here. On this amp, you can see you have a 1 ohm resistor going from pin 1 and also 8 there to ground. Pin 8 and 1 to ground. If you don't have a resistor here, you need to add one to be able to read your bias setting. If your pin 8 and 1 go straight to ground, you're not going to be able to get a reading. You need a 1 ohm resistor from pin 8 and 1 to ground. Okay, once you've located the test point and you've attached the ground lead and your positive lead to pin 1 and 8 there on the resistor, you want to take your multimeter and put it to millivolts. Remember, we're going up to about 80 millivolts, so you need to set it accordingly. Have it set on 200 millivolts. Okay. Remember, the amp plugged in to some form of load, and now you have your power lead in, so there are lethal voltages in here, so be careful. Switch the amp on, let the tubes warm up, and turn the standby on and watch the multimeter climb. Okay, so it's settled on about 80 millivolts. That means 40 millivolts per tube. Okay, which is fine. Let's measure the other side. Okay, to adjust it, you want to look at the multimeter while you're slowly turning the VR1. Okay, clockwise, make it drop. Okay, see, 75. So I actually want it around 80. That's 40 millivolts per tube. So I'm gonna slightly turn it back counterclockwise till I get slow movements. Okay, movements. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's around 40 millivolts per tube, and that's how you set your bias. Okay, turn the amp off, and remember, be careful. The capacitors are still charged, so assemble the head back again and don't touch anything, and let's see how it sounds. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you liked what you saw. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Yeah, until next time.